Hey everybody, this is Paul, and today I'm going to talk about Aeonium care and propagation. Now there's way more than 35 species of Aeoniums. There's so many hybrids now. You can see just some of the varieties here in front of you. Most are native to the Canary Islands, and they thrive in zones 9 to 11. Now they have fleshy rosettes. You can see the different types, or they could be more kind of like a succulent here. I can't remember the name of this variety offhand, but you can see it's similar, but definitely this one is more, I would put this in more full sun. Here's another similar variety to what I just showed you. This is Aeonium kiwi. And again, this thing can grow in soil or in a pot in Southern California. I'm sure they do well indoors too. I only grow mine outdoors. So as long as you have well-draining soil, look, there's no hole in this, and it almost died in the rain. So what I have to do is I need to drill some holes here. So I'm going to take all these out and save them. So anyways, well-draining soil is key, as you can I hinted at. And in addition, I think of them as like Goldilocks and the Three Little Bears. Is they don't like it too hot, they don't like it too cold, and they don't like it too dry. They will tolerate full sun. You can see I pulled this one out of a full sun because I wanted to get this lovely kind of coloring here. It would be more green in the shade. Now that variety is called Berry Nice, and again I have this under in a 3/4 day sunlight in a pot because I wanted to get more color. Now under here, in these areas here, these varieties are always grown in shade under a canopy. So you can see how happy they are this time of year. It's in spring in Southern California. And I'll show you some more about care and on a variety walk and propagation. But before we head out here, I want to remind you that there's basically 3 types. The green type on the left there is the Aeonium arboreum. There's different variations I'll show you, and then there's going to be ones like here on the right, the common, it's commonly known as an arboreum atroperpetuum, I believe, if I remember correctly. Now their common names could be plum purdy or Aeonium escondido. We have some different varieties. Down here, the one that looks overexposed is a Aeonium sunburst, which often will crest. So let's go explore some more varieties and talk about care. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about care. Now, the first thing I've learned in the past 10 years of growing Aeoniums is if you want them to look really beautiful, you grow them under a canopy. Now, excuse the lighting, but you can see that these receive quite a bit of shade, especially during the summer. So also, if you look on the left, they get a lot of overspray from the lawn during the summer months. So those combinations of factors really enable Aeoniums to thrive in Southern California. Now if you grow them in a pot, like this Berry Nice, and again I do grow this one in full sun because I wanted to get much more of that beautiful coloration. I mean, you can see it's one of my favorite. So you can see if you grow it in a pot, make sure you get plenty of well-draining soil. You could get just the basic Kellogg's palm and cactus mix if you want, or you can make your own. And the succulents really like added pumice, vermiculite, and perlite in my experience. But well-draining soil, if you keep it in a pot, this one is full shade in a pot. You can see it does really well. There's a Aeonium sunburst on the right. This beautiful thing is a tricolor, also known as Mardi Gras. I have several of them, and they'll take up to 3/4 day sun, but they look about the same. This is one of my smaller ones. Now this variety is known as plum purdy. Again, it gets full shade. You can see it's really stunning, does really well. They get pretty darn big in a pot, and that is just maybe like 3 gallons. Now here's Aeonium escondido, grown in native soil, but I've amended it. You can see some perlite in the bottom of the frame there. Here's one of the green arboreums, I believe you call it, but I have several. They definitely are different. There's many sub-varieties of these. I'll show you one in a bit. But again, under a canopy, they just really thrive. You could see a lot of these have broken off. Some have bloomed or gotten just so heavy this winter, they've broken off. You can see I've amended this soil along the wall with, I think it was that Kellogg mix, back when I did this several years ago, and I only added maybe like an, I don't know, 4-inch layer of that material, that soil. So that you could see just this time of year in Southern California is when they thrive. I think this is Aeonium. This is some strange crested variety I have. But they just thrive this time of year in March, April, May into June before they start to go dormant. Now when you're caring for Aeoniums, this variegated variety is a much slow grower. You can see that when you care for them, you have to be careful, because snails especially like to eat your favorite ones, it seems like. So this time of year, you need to keep an eye out on them. Snails tend to be more active after a rain, and they'll just destroy your Aeoniums like nothing. So make sure that you treat them accordingly, or take care of them accordingly. I like to take care of them my way. And you can see they just will damage Aeoniums. Also, you could get mealybugs or aphids. I like to spray a bit of neem oil on them, and that usually will solve the problem even with snails. Bummer about that. So you can see they damage quite easily. They are rather tender. They don't suffer much damage from frost though. So let's go over here now. Sorry for the blur, but I have a few special things I'd like to share here. So here's some other varieties, again grown in soil. I did not amend the soil. I left it alone, and you can see they're doing fine. You get some overspray from that sprinkler there. And this is a crested variety of Aeonium. You can see what crested means. It's kind of flattened out. It's a mutation. And sometimes this sunburst crested variety will shoot out a regular non-crested variety too. So super cool. And they're very easy to propagate. We'll talk about that in a minute. You can see just up close kind of what a cutting of this variety looks like. It's just really stunning and flat. Whoa, look at that. It looks like some kind of bug casing or something weird. Alright, so that's a crested variety, which are more rare and more highly sought after. I have several of these, and some are approaching 3 feet. They get pretty big, and they are a bit harder to propagate. Now, what happens about Aeoniums here, or not what happens, but a characteristic is their blooms. So you can see how beautiful their blossoms are. And some people call them death blooms, but I don't really call them death blooms, especially with a big plant like this, because it will still survive, but most of that stalk will die off, and especially with that one too, but not this whole plant, because there's just so many. It's fallen over the years and just rooted itself, so this thing's gonna keep going. But their blooms are very, very stunning, very beautiful, as you can see. One of my favorite things about them. And bees and pollinators really, really enjoy them. So I hope you don't use any systemics on them to hurt the bees. That's not cool. Again, you can see just why I love Aeoniums. So let's go find some more in the yard, and we'll talk about propagation. All right. Okay, for propagation here, I recommend propagating them anytime they're not dormant. So basically from a little bit after the first rains until June or July into August if your varieties are in the shade. You can see you don't want to propagate these and plant these in the soil right now when they're wet like that. You're going to get rot and probably not take. Something like this black rose, may be more forgiving if it's wet, but you definitely want to just put them in the shade and let them callus over like this. That's the best method to get them to propagate. You can see it even has little roots growing there. And you just toss them in the soil here. Now I think it's self-explanatory how you pot them, but when you amend the soil here, you can see I added some potting soil right there, about 4 inches, not too much, and that is about all you need. And so you can set them along like a rock, something like that. You can't even set them like that. I've seen them and they'll root, but ideally, I mean, this one's pretty curved. You kind of just want to do something like that. Literally just leave it in the soil, it's gonna do fine. Bury it a little bit, and that's what I would do. Same with this variety, you can do the same. And voila, you're good to go. So pretty simple. You can stake them up if you wanted them up straight. Yeah, I've seen that done as well, but I usually just toss them and they'll do fine. So we'll end on a few more cool varieties here. I think one of these in here is called Cyclops. I'm pretty sure it's this variety. It's really beautiful. Stunning little Aeonium. And I believe sometimes you could get some really beautiful pinks in your sunbursts here. You can see, stunning. This one's really starting to produce multi-heads. Now you can behead some of these varieties and they'll grow back. Others will not grow back. Now let me go show you my favorite one and we'll end this episode. Now I've had this one for about 10 years and it always stays really petite and goes dormant really early. Not sure what variety it is, but it's not my favorite one. I'll show you what it is. This one is pretty cool. But look at how large this giant purple is. So this is probably my favorite one. I've only had it a few months. It's called the giant purple, is what someone told me. And you can see the new growth is just stunning. And I heard this one will get 5 feet. I've seen them get really, really thick. Once or twice I was somewhere, maybe Balboa Park, and I saw one that was huge. So I'm excited to have one of these. It's getting some pups. But again, I've only had this maybe half a year or so. So I can't wait to see what it does in the future. Alright, there you go. Give us a like and a subscribe. Have yourself a wonderful day. Take care. Dude, it's creepy.